Hello Naties, welcome to another sit-down video. My name is Bonolo and I create content on psychology, spirituality and everything else in between. I hope you enjoy this video as we dive into our emotions. So we're going to look at the psychology of emotions, and maybe we dial it back a bit, because as much as we know of the word emotions and feelings, our interpretation of it may differ. So I will give you an interpretation that we will work with throughout the video. And emotions in this instance are signals. Literally, they are the mind and body's way of signaling to you, the owner of these, that something is happening in your environment. So previous preconception is that emotions are definitive. If I am feeling disrespected, it must be that that's the case. And what we are now saying here is that no, emotions are there as a signal. They tell us that something is happening. So let's just go deeper into that. So if we had to go back into what evolution looks like, back then in the caveman days, emotions played a role in that it allowed the person to adapt to their environment. They were neither good nor bad. Instead, it was just an adaptive tool that served a purpose. For example, we start with fear. Fear, anxiety, dread, apprehension. These emotions tell us that we are feeling unsafe or uneasy within the environment that we are in, whether emotionally or physically. Then we've got anger. This could also look like irritability, resentment, jealousy, frustration. And anger is normally said to be a secondary emotion. Secondary in that it normally protects an emotion that we feel too vulnerable to express. Anger is protective in its nature, as that it appears or arises when you are feeling threatened, whether in your physical environment or you are feeling threatened emotionally. It's almost like a barrier line that sends off warning bells when your boundaries have been crossed. So then we start to feel angry, we puff up, we become bigger to protect this territory. So we've got sadness. Sadness can look like disappointment, grief, loneliness, or nostalgia. Sadness arises when we perceive loss, when we feel like we've lost something dear to us. This could be money, this could be people, this could be even title. So anytime there's a sense of loss, it comes with sadness. Then lastly, happiness, joy, excitement, content, and gratitude. This one is almost obvious for all of us because this is the preferred emotions, the one emotion that we all strive to feel. And this is just that feeling that everything is well in the world, all is well in the world. You are aligned with where you're supposed to be and everything is going our way. So these are signals. And it's one thing to label them. Labels are very external, right? But what we are then going to go into is looking at the physical signals, because I want you to imagine an alarm went off. And in one house, the person comes up with a hammer to chase a thief. The other person comes out with a bucket of water because an alarm to them sounds like something, a fire alarm. And then another person is calling the insurance because they think their car has been stolen. Silly example, but yes, every alarm needs to have a different sound in order for you to understand what it means. And that's what we feel within the body. So, for example, with anger, you will start to get tense. The body would start to get tense. Your blood pressure would increase. Your heart rate would increase. And if you think about it evolutionary or physically, because anger is protective, it's gearing you up to either fight or flight. And by so doing, it needs to pump more blood to your muscles and your extremities so that you can prepare yourself to run. So your muscles tense up, your palms become sweaty because there's just a lot more blood is moving a lot faster within the body. Anger, very similar feelings, but anger, the heart rate spikes, the breathing increases, and a lot of people report having stomach issues. This could be either a running stomach, this could be a knot in your belly, or it also could be like something like vomiting. And if you think about it, if we're going to fight, fright, or freeze, in vomiting we are lessening the load so that we can run a bit faster. But the thing about anger and fear is that the emotions are very similar in that the one thing that sets them apart is that anger gives you that sense of direction, so you want to do something about it, whereas fear is anticipatory, so you anticipate something coming your way. So these are very slight differences, and we will go into the importance of being able to sit down and actually evaluate what you're going through before acting on it. Then we've got sadness. Sadness normally feels like a bit of heaviness in your chest, you know, a lump in your throat, slower speech, slower cognition, teary eyes, emotional. That's what anger looks like. And then we've got joy. So I feel like joy is easier for all of us to identify. If you're an alien, I tell you that joy feels like a state of euphoria, a state of everything is going well in the world, a state of being favored, a state of being aligned in what you're doing, a state of being God's favorite child. That is joy. So although we may experience emotions differently, the name stays the same. Physically, you may get stomach issues when the next person gets headaches, you know. These feelings show up differently in each one of us, and knowing this part of my video really intellectualizes emotions, which is normally something that's said not to do, but I do believe that it is important for you to understand what they are and their function. Their function is not to harm you, their function is not to threaten you, their function is not to neither be good nor bad. They are just information that needs you to process it, so that you can then best choose what to do thereafter. This process would look like mindfulness, right? I think we've all heard about mindfulness. So yes, staying curious. I think that is another big thing, is stay curious. Find out what sadness feels like for you. Find out what anger feels like in the body, so that when the signal comes, you are aware of it, because a lot of the time the body reacts first before the mind catches up. So when you feel it in the body, you are then able to stop, process, make sense of it, and then use your best judgment moving forward. Right, so the next part is, this feels like a lecture, but hey, I don't mind it. So the next part is us understanding that emotions do not like being ignored. Emotions do not like being ignored. If you ignore an emotion, similarly to thoughts, it comes back stronger. It comes back and starts to show up in your thoughts, it shows up in your behavior, and it shows up physically. This is why we encourage that sit in the discomfort of the emotion, especially the ones that have been termed as negative, the anger, the sadness, the fear, is we sit in those and find out where do they come from, what caused them, and then from there you can then make a more intentional choice on how to move forward. The next thing about emotions is that there is no one emotion that is superior, neither good or bad. They are just information. Yes, anger makes people uncomfortable, and it's uncomfortable to be vulnerable enough to look at fear and sadness, but neither of them are good or bad. Even joy in the long term, when experienced over a long period of time, wreaks havoc. Have you noticed that when you're happy, you are a lot more talkative? You probably tip a lot better. When you are happy, you probably make more impulsive decisions, like on a night out. So if you can imagine that state prolonged over 3 months, the amount of damage you could do to your life is equally as bad as what anger can do. Anger just works a bit faster. The other part is that when we start to look at emotions as signals, it allows us to start to become mindful in how our body responds to our external worlds, or even our internal environment. Internal environment, I'm referring to our thoughts and how they're impacting on our mood. And in starting to be able to do that, we start to bridge a gap where psychology and spirituality meet. And that's what we're going into next. So psychology and spirituality have always been thought to be opposing. And when you start to take apart processes such as mindfulness, you start to see that they overlap and essentially walk parallel with each other. Similarly to psychology, with spirituality, when we are able to be intentional in our awareness and sit down and be in the body, we are able to start the process of discernment. Being able to say, this is the feeling I'm feeling, this is the reason for the feeling, or this what triggered the feeling. And allowing yourself to sit in it and maybe approach yourself with compassion and curiosity to say, but why would I be feeling this way? What about what that person said made me feel this way? What about what that person did makes me feel this way? And when we are able to start to ask ourselves those questions and sit down with ourselves, we start to then find a more clearer path for us to walk. With spirituality, emotions are part of the mind, body, and spirit connection. Again, these are signals. The baseline would be quiet. And when a signal pops up, it's almost spirit's way of saying, come back into self, sit with self, and be curious. When we are able to filter out our daily mess, whether somebody cut you off in traffic and you carried that into the office, and somebody then didn't finish the work, and when we're able to go and filter and make sense of the whole day, where you are able to pinpoint why you felt this way, this is how you felt at any given time, and you are left with nothing but peace, you are able to exercise that discernment a bit better, that when thoughts and messages do come, you are then able to filter them through and make sense of them. For a person who is Christian or who is more religious, in that moment, after you've processed your own emotion, you are able to go into scripture and you are able to hear it with a different ear versus when you are emotional. The thing about emotions is that they affect how we process information. Where when you're angry, a hooter from the car behind you is insulting, versus when you are in a good mood and somebody hoots and you're like, oh, maybe they're happy, maybe they're saying hi. It's very different, because when we are in that emotional state, how we receive information is different to when we are at a baseline where we are somewhat neutral. So my challenge to you in all of this is to learn to identify these emotions in the body. without judging, without having an opinion or forming a conclusion. Just learn to identify the feelings. Learn to sit in the discomfort of them. Name them. And from there, just be. Let them flow through you without you trying to suppress them or manipulate them. Allow them to just exist and flow through you. If you found this video helpful, informative, nonsense, whatever, like and consider subscribing. We will expand more as we then now learn how to regulate them. But for now, with love.